Guys, welcome to the first episode of the 180 podcast. I am your host, Al Dexter, and today I'm honored to be sitting down with Mr. Marco Baez, a barber, entrepreneur, barbershop owner, father, husband. This guy wears a lot of hats, and a man of faith who has really just turned his life around, done a complete 180, if you will. And I don't really want to steal his thunder, but he is here to share his inspiring story, as well as insights that I think is going to motivate barbers just like you that are watching and listening at home. And did I mention that he is my coworker as well? We both work for the new era of barbering as coaches. Love working with you, brother. And for you guys that are listening and tuning in, this episode is really going to be about transformation, determination, and the power of faith and family and how that's affected Marco's life and what you can glean from that as well. And whether you're just starting out in the industry or looking for that extra push in your journey or curious on how to open up a barbershop and what that really takes, I know this short episode is really going to resonate with you. So Marco, thank you for being here, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me. Love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really want to start off with really hearing your story. And I'm excited because for me, this is going to be my first time as well, really hearing it in full fidelity, if you will. So I'm excited to hear your story. So do you mind sharing your journey, Marco, your story, and in particular, what led you to become a barber and how did you find your passion in this industry?
Sure. So my mom used to cut my hair. So that's how I started cutting hair because, moms aren't that good at cutting hair, right? So she would cut my hair and she would kind of leave it long in the front because I have a cowlick here. So she would leave it long and then I would have to go back over it with like whatever guard we were using, like a 1 or 2 guard. And I would have to go back over it and also clean up any stray hairs. And so I went back over it once and then she cut my hair again. This is like when I was in 6th grade. So we're talking about 1998, all right? I used to go back over it, and then she, after like the 3rd time of just going back over it, I said, I have to go over my entire head. Why don't I just do my own haircut? Why don't I just do it myself? So I started doing that. Then I started doing the same thing on my little brothers, and then I realized what a lining was, like what a lineup was. Because it just wasn't even a thing back then. We were doing just like a bowl cut, so it was just like a straight up like line all the way around 0, and then like a 1 or a 2 on top. And this is late 1990s in inner city Chicago. So that was that was the style back then. And then I seen what a lineup was, and then I lined myself up and I jacked myself all up, and I went to school, and some of my friends were like, who cut your hair? And I'm like, oh, I cut my own hair. And they're like, oh, can you cut my hair after school? So then that's how I started cutting hair. Just people at school started asking me. The first time I got actually paid for a haircut, I was in 7th grade. And one of my friends, his dad was going to a job interview. Mm-hmm. And his dad came and knocked on my door. And he said, hey, can you cut my hair? You cut my son's hair. And I'm like, he's like, I'll pay you. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I'll pay you to cut my hair. Can you cut my hair right now? I need my hair cut right now. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm cutting this grown man's hair, in my basement. And so yeah, it was the first time I got actually paid for a haircut. So that's kind of how I started cutting hair. Then I went into high school and I started cutting my friends in high school. But the thing was, I had a small like little fold out chair, like little steel fold out chair. And I never wanted to cut hair for a living because I would cut my friends, and I'd be down in the basement cutting their hair for like, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours like right. On a weekend or whatever, cutting their hair. And my back would be killing me because I was like bending over, like trying to, my back would be killing me. My back would be killing me from being hunched over trying to cut their hair.
Sure.
So I'm like, I don't want to cut hair. I don't want to cut hair for a living. I don't even want to do this for 4 hours. I don't want to do it for 8 hours, whatever. I don't want to do it because my back is killing me. So I'm like, I know I don't want to cut hair for a living. I just want to, do this on the side, whatever. Well, during that time, I had started to dip and dabble, or how should I say this? Let me see if I can put this in a better way. During that time, I started to get involved in all the wrong things. And just hanging out with old friends and just being from that inner city in Chicago, just being involved in just a product of like an environment full of gangs and gang infested environment. Those are the things that kind of attracted me early on. So in my younger years, in my high school years, those are the things that I leaned more into doing. And that lifestyle, leaning into that and doing that, is what got me. It got me in a lot of trouble. And actually, I ended up getting arrested, and I was facing a 9-year prison sentence.
Wow.
And during that time, I had actually bonded out, so I was actually out, in the world, as we say, fighting my case instead of being inside of jail fighting my case. And during that time, I knew I couldn't do what I was doing before, so I started working all these like little odd jobs. And here I am, but I started cutting hair again, like just in my bathroom again. And then here I am, I'm working these odd jobs, like mopping floors, sweeping floors, working in factories. And everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, you're working, like, you're super overqualified for these jobs. Like, what are you doing? And why don't you just go cut hair? And I'm like, no. So finally, it hit me like, would you rather like mop floors or whatever for 12 hours a day, or would you rather cut hair? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Is it really that bad? So then that's when I went into working in a barbershop full time. That was around 2007. And the way I got the job was I didn't have any clients at the time that I can cut. I went into a barbershop, and the owner of the barbershop was like, yeah, you can get a job, but you got to show me that you know how to cut hair. So I didn't have anybody. So what I did was, on the spot, I said, and I really wanted the job, I said, how about I cut my own hair? And I cut my own hair right there in front of them. And remember, the barbers were like walking around, and they're like, yo, man, he's cutting his own hair. Like, man, that's crazy. Never seen anybody cut their own hair like right on the spot. Like, this dude's crazy. So yeah, I line myself up, or I cut my hair, I line myself up, and they're all like, as I'm cutting my hair, they're like all walking around me. You know what I mean? Like checking out the work. And then I could see them tell the owner, like, nah, dude knows how to cut hair. He knows how to cut hair. So he gives me a job, and then that's how I got into barbering.
Wow.
That's how I got in. Yeah. And then so go ahead.
I was just gonna say is first that part where that gentleman, when you were in 7th grade, trusting you to cut his hair is wild. That's insane to me. And then second of all, for you to be facing that amount of time, and then to be bailed out and still trying to pursue a business, and then by chance just cutting hair, man, and that owner taking you kind of into his shop and stuff like that. I guess like my next question is like how'd you go from there, right? That's 2007 to where you're at now as a business owner owning the barbershop. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, so 2007, I started cutting hair professionally in a barbershop, and I did that for 2 years, working for that gentleman. And during that time, I really just built up my book of business, and I took the skills that I had learned from being in the streets and being just an overachiever is what I was. And I just took that into now, and I applied that to cutting hair. And so I just worked my butt off. I made connections with people. I got myself out there. I passed out cards. I gave free haircuts. Whatever I did, whatever I had to do, I just did what I had to do to get people in my chair. 2009, I actually went away to prison, and I got out in the beginning of 2012. So I was gone for 2 years, and while I was in there, I was cutting hair as well. And when I got out of prison in 2012, I went back to work for the same barbershop that I was working for before, and I worked for him for 2 more years, and then I opened up my own barbershop after that in 2014.
Gotcha. 2014, and now I mean, wow, holy cow, 2014 doesn't seem like that long ago, But now we're looking at 11 years in business. Number one, just congratulations on that, owning a barbershop for 11 years. I'm really curious in like that, you know, being in or being sentenced to go to jail, right, for 9 years, and then actually going to jail for 2 years or prison. What was like that turning point in your life that made you want to kind of change that lifestyle and pursue something greater? I mean, I imagine like, you know, you're a young man. Why, talk to me. Were you married? Did you have your kids at that time? Because I know, you know, you're a father now, but what was that like during that time?
Yeah, so at that time, I was single. I didn't have any kids at that time. I wasn't married, and to be honest with you, the big change came from growing up. I wasn't really raised. I wasn't really raised with faith, right? We were taught about it, but we weren't really. We were just taught about God, but we weren't really encouraged to pursue a relationship with Him. And it wasn't until me going to right before I went into prison, I had run out. I had run out of options. So the reason why I was facing 9 years was because I had actually been arrested, and then I got out on bond, and then I was arrested again for something else, and I got out on bond, and I was arrested again, and I was out on bond. So I was already like running out of options, and I ran out of money, and I had nowhere to go. And so at that time, when I was actually in jail in Chicago, somebody shared the gospel with me, and they said, "Hey, man, you're headed down the wrong path, and have you tried Christ? Have you tried faith in Christ, and seen, have you prayed and seen if you can get any, if that'll help you, and so I remember that, and I never did anything with it. I just like, I never thought about that. And then when I was out on bond, I knew that I was facing 9 years, so I was going through such a hard time in my life, and I went through such a hard depression, really, really bad, and I didn't know what to do. And so I remember that what that person had told me about, hey, try reading the Bible, hey, try praying about it, and I remember I just picked up a Bible one day and I just started reading, and I remember like for like a week, like I just never put it down, and I was like, I remember it was just like grabbing my heart, and I'm just like, what is going on? So then I remember saying, okay, I got to get into a church. Like I got to pursue this. I got to find out what this is all about. And so I started doing that, and I actually ended up giving my life to Christ in right before I went into prison, so like around 2009. I really didn't have any idea what that meant or what I was doing.
Sure.
So fast forward to like about 6 months after I started getting my life together, I ended up going into prison. And I'm just like, oh shoot, started all, kind of for me, I was like, okay, I got to start all over again of how I know how to survive from the streets in prison, because that's the only way I knew how to survive in there. And I jumped back into that lifestyle when I first got in there, and I grew my leadership in there, in that lifestyle and in that arena of gangs and stuff like that, grew rapidly, and finally, one day, somebody had came to me, and I was kind of playing both sides of the fence. I was kind of like still going to church and like read my Bible, but still like, involved in the wrong things. And someone told me like, hey, you got to cut that out. You got to get serious. And there was some situations that happened in there while I was in there that kind of just opened my eyes, and I just said, I'm done. And I just gave everything up, and I just gave the leadership that I had up, and I just tossed it all away, and I said, I'm just going to pursue Christ now for the rest of the time that I'm in here. That was about 6 to 8 months. That was like my first 6 to 8 months that I was in there, and I still had so off of 24 plus months, I still had 6 months. It was like 18 months left.
Wow.
So in that moment, I did like a whole 180, and I started to. I was like a group leader in my actual pod where I was at. So we had 50 guys in my actual pod, and I would hold Bible studies, and we would hold prayer calls and stuff like that, and like small groups and stuff like that every single night for the 18 months, the remaining 18 months that I was in there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That I love that. That as a man of faith myself, as a Christian, like hearing your story, I mean, I know this how much that affects who you are, how you show up, your way of being, and I think spending a couple minutes on this time to talk about that is crucial because you wouldn't be the man you are today if it weren't for those crossroads, if you will, crossroads that you had, and you had decisions to make and your turning point, and you got to multiple breaking points. And I don't know if there's anybody listening who has the same exact story as you, maybe some similar, maybe some that aren't, but I do know this, we all go through crossroads in life. And maybe somebody as a barber who's listening to this, man, I hope it resonated with somebody, man. If you got that little tingly feeling in your spine, that's something. Don't let that go away, right? And Marco, it brings me up to my next question. We talked about pursuing greater and change, and obviously you joined the new era of barbering, right? And now you're a coach for the new era of barbering, and I know how much it's impacted and changed my life. But really, I wanted to talk about you talk so much about your faith as well as your belief in God, and how has that really affected you being a father, being a man of faith? How has that influenced your work, your decision making as a barber, as well as a barbershop owner, your business owner?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a verse that talks about do everything as if you're doing it unto the Lord, right? So that's one of my favorite verses, right? So everything that I do, for the most part, right, I want to do it to a level of excellence, like if I was doing it unto the Lord. So every haircut that I do, I want to do it as if like I don't want to cut any corners. I want to do the best possible job that I can, because I know that the gift that I've been given to cut hair is a gift from God, and not everybody has it. So I try to pay back the gift that was given to me. I try to glorify the Lord in what I do by doing it to my uttermost ability, to the top of my ability. That's kind of my mindset when it comes to anything that I do. I just want to be excellent at it. I feel like if you are a Christian, and anything that you do, you should do it to the very best of your ability. Like there should, and I feel like nowadays a lot of Christians don't see that success that they could have if they had that mindset. And I feel like a lot of it comes down to like motivation, like what is really motivating you, and here in this side of eternity, we have to work. We have to work, and the ones that try to perform the best, and the ones that try to do it, to glorify the Lord, will rise to the top. And the ones that just sit back and say, why don't I have this, or why don't I have that? They just don't have the motivation that it takes. And I feel like there's people out there that are not Christian that are out motivating us. And there should be no way that anybody should be able to out motivate a Christian, because we're working for such a higher purpose. We're working for such a higher standard.
Yeah.
And
A calling, if you will.
whereas a secular person or someone who's non-Christian is working to achieve self-gratitude, self-motivation, self-esteem, for self. They're working for things that they want to achieve, things that are material, things that will be here today and will be gone tomorrow. Whereas we should be working towards something that is so much more everlasting and so much more transcendent, that no one should ever be able to out motivate a believer. But unfortunately, sometimes we lack motivation.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think I've heard this before is, you got to pray like it all depends on God, but you got to work like it all depends on you.
Absolutely.
And for that, like one of the things that as I've gotten to know you over the past, oh man, bro, what, 7 months now, almost a year, is kind of crazy. One of the things that I learned from you, and you always remind me as well, is with your leadership is you have a servant's heart as a leader. I know that's biblical, and I would love for you to touch on that for barbers. Is being a leader at the barbershop, or being a leader in your group that you're with, right? A friend group or whatever, or your family. Is you talk to me a lot, and you remind me a lot about servant leadership, right? Is leading by serving. Would you mind touching on that and why that's so impactful, and something that a barber should be interested in doing if they're working at a barbershop and they want to kind of get respect, you know?
Sure. So, I just draw that from, if you want to be the greatest among everyone, right, you need to serve everyone, right? So we can, and of course that comes from the Bible again, right? So if you're in a barbershop and you're trying to, so for me, I'm a barbershop owner, so I can lead in two different ways, right? I can lead where I tell everybody what to do, and they'll do it until they get tired of me, right? Or I can show them that I work tirelessly to serve them and do everything that I can for them, and we come up together rather than me just being on top. And one thing that's really cool about my barbershop that I own right now is that if you walked in there, no one knows who's the owner. No one can, like, if someone walks in, they always ask, like, which one of you guys is the owner? Because they see me sweeping up, they see me cleaning up, they see me, cleaning the bathrooms or whatever it is. They see my barbers doing the same thing. They see us all pitching in together, right? And that really brings up the team as a whole. You can be all about yourself, but you will be on top and it'll be very lonely, or you can bring others up with you. And that's my whole mentality, is like you're able to sustain your position if you have others with you rather than all by yourself, because then you're constantly having to look over your back, and I don't want to live like that. I definitely don't want to live like that.
Absolutely. From a practical standpoint, like, I do remember being at a shop, and the first shop I was an apprentice at, just amazing atmosphere. Sounds very much like your barbershop. Then when I went to another shop to start scaling my prices, the atmosphere wasn't the same. It was very much like you said, like everyone out for themselves, dog fight world kind of thing, dog eat dog kind of world, where it's like a walk-in comes in, hey, that's mine, I'm up next, you know what I mean? And really that, and I remember like being just completely culture shocked by that. Like, what in the world is going on, right? And slowly but surely, by like you said, by serving others, for instance, like people wouldn't sweep for each other, right? If they were busy, they would just let the hair pile up. You know what I mean? If a walk-in came in, it was like they were fighting over this guy or making like comments and remarks against the other barber while the client was there. Like, just an awkward experience. And I remember trying to lead with my actions, by serving, by being the first person to sweep. Or when it was supposed to be my turn and a guy jumped up out of the seats, hey man, you got it, bro. It's all good, man. You can have that one. And almost killing them with kindness, if you will, but in the sense of leading in that. And slowly but surely, Marco, like to your point, is they see that in you. And if you're living the way you know you ought to be living, right, and holding up the characters and morals and values that you taught, that are biblical, that you taught yourself and you try to uphold, is they see that in you and they can't help but emulate that, because there's something different about that. So to your credit, like for you guys that are out there, I mean, listening or watching this, is having that serving mindset. Is you might seem like it's a lost cause, but you can shift the atmosphere of that shop. You can be that leader by being just the first person who takes that step and decides, hey, I'm going to be different. I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do this right. I don't care what anybody else is saying or doing around me. I'm going to hold up to my standards and the standards that there. And people, you'll be surprised how much people will follow your lead on that. And I love that, man. Anyway, I know we can talk for topics or for hours on this topic, but for those who are really interested in opening a barbershop, I mean, owner for 11 years, I imagine they have questions for you, right? I know that opening up a barbershop is a big step, one that many barbers aspire to do. So I'm really curious, what Marco, like, inspired you to take that leap, and what challenges did you face in the beginning?
Yeah, well, it goes into kind of what you were talking about with being in like kind of like a little bit of a toxic environment at first. Barbershop that I was in, loved the guy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love the guy. He gave me an opportunity. I'm still cool with him today. But it was a shop where he was the owner and everyone knew he was the owner, and he let you know he was the owner. His name was on the on the sign, and it was just all about him. And which is cool, that nothing against him, but I just wanted to cultivate a whole different type of culture where we just, where me and my barber just all came up together, right? So what happened was I ended up just because of the type of guy that I am, I ended up, and the servant heart that I have, I ended up attaining a lot of clients. And I wasn't fighting. There would be people fighting in the barbershop for clients, and I wouldn't do that. I would just cool out, and everybody knew that, I don't want to go to those guys because they're just, they're just all over the place, and they're just like he's a chill dude, he's a chill guy, you know what I'm saying? So let me go to him and see what he's all about. And I just took advantage of it. I took advantage of that, and I built up my book of business. And I actually built up a book of business where I was cutting more hair than the owner. And the owner was super booked, and he had a big book of business as well. And then we got into a disagreement about some business stuff, and he wasn't taking care of his side of things. And I told him, I said, hey, he put me in a tight spot, and I told him, hey, I could go and open up my own shop, and I would actually pay less money than I would pay here, because he kept on jacking up my booth rent. Like he every time he's seen that I was making more money than him, he would keep jacking up my booth rent. So, and I had a kid on the way. My daughter was about to be born. She's 10 years old now. So this was like, she's about to be 11. She's about to be 11 in February. So this was like like 6 months before she was born, and he was like jacking up my booth rent. He kept on doing that, so on and so forth. And I said, I'm gonna open up my own shop, and that's what I did. I went and opened up my own shop, and it was nerve-wracking at first with a baby on the way, but I didn't have an issue. I didn't have an issue with it. I'm sorry, I forgot your question. What was the question again?
Yeah, well, I mean, my question was like, what kind of inspired you to take the leap? And that answers it. You know what I mean? Again, it's like a point of this episode, I feel like, is crossroads, right? You had a choice. You had a choice of what to do, right? And so I'm curious, you make that choice, right? You got a baby on the way, man, and you're moving over. What challenges did you face in the beginning, being a barbershop owner, opening that up? What were some of the challenges for that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be the challenges financially, right? So before I could do that, I had to have the money to saved up in order to build out the barbershop where I was going to be at. So that challenge. Also the unknown of, are people going to follow me? Are people going to follow me? Also, I started cutting hair before there was YouTube, before there was any of that stuff. So I literally had to sit in barbershops for hours. My buddy's mom owned a salon, and there was like one barber there, and I would just sit there with him for hours, just watching that one barber cut hair. And then I would go back and I would practice that on my little brothers or whatever the case was. So I say that to say that it took me a long time to learn, like, to get good, because I didn't have that much practice. Like, I didn't have that many people to practice on.
Sure.
So, I say that to say that I'm trying to think where I was going with that. So this is why I was saying that. The reason why I say that is because I was working in that barbershop. I didn't even have a barber's license because I had taught myself how to cut hair. So I actually owned a barber shop before I even had a barber license. So I was still going to school to get my license while my shop was open. So I kind of went about things the wrong way, but I knew I had to get my license eventually. So that's what I went ahead and did right off the bat. Some other challenges that I faced was just not knowing things about just little things about business that I wish I would have known early on, like how to actually run my business, how to actually track my business, how to know my numbers, how to do taxes, stuff like that are some things that I struggled with early on, and I quickly found out that these things are really important. These things are essential to being a productive businessman, definitely.
Yeah, and you know what, that's really great is there's so many things like people want to open up a barbershop, but there's so many things behind the scenes that you have to do, so many different logistics that you have to jump through, especially out here in California, making sure you're in the proper zoning, like you said, taxes, getting in contact with properties, building out contracts, the whole 9 yards, right? So there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. And what advice would you give to barbers who are really dreaming about opening their own shop, but maybe they feel stuck or they feel afraid to kind of take that risk, right? Like what advice do you have for those individuals?
Yeah, I think anytime you have a dream or a goal, I think that inspiration comes because you've seen somebody else there and you want to be where they're at because you see that it's possible. Like, okay, I see this guy was able to do it, so I think I can do that as well. And I think that anytime you have that inkling or that notion that you want to grow and you want to be where you see somebody else or even better than where you see them at, I think the best thing to do is to get a mentor, to get a coach, to lean on somebody, to ask somebody who's already been there, hey, can you give me any kind of advice? Can you give me anything? And just taking all that in. Because I know for me early on, one of my biggest issues was that I didn't do that. So there was a bit of a struggle in the beginning for me. The only thing that I knew is that I knew that the previous barbershop that I was working at, the owner wasn't good with finances. So all I knew was that, okay, I'm going to cut hair and I'm going to make sure I pay my bills. That's all I'm going to do.
You learned what not to do.
Exactly. Just like make sure you pay your bills because I'm going to be honest. There was a couple times when our lights got cut off in his barbershop. And it was like, what are we going to do now? So it's like, I'm like, okay, whatever you do in life, just make sure that never happens to you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I would always advise anyone, you're where you're at, find someone that you can look up to, find someone that you can say, okay, this is my next step. And then try to be a student of that person. Try to learn as much as you can from that person. Humbly go to that person. Hey, look, where you are at is where I want to be at one day. What's one piece of advice you can give me? What's one thing you can give me that would help me out to get there? And then having people hold you accountable is another one. Like, I know for me, what's helped me most in my life and what's helped me stay away from the old life that I used to live before is just having people that I have in my circle that can always hold me accountable. And hey, I let them know I'm trying to do this or this is what I'm struggling in, and they hold me accountable to that. Because I think that, again, this goes back to being on top all by yourself. I think that we were created to lean on each other. We were created to be in a community with each other, helping each other out. And I think that's what we were created to do and what we were created for, and to grow with each other. But it kind of gets mixed up or messed up when we try to do it all on our own.
Yeah.
We have nobody holding us accountable. I know a lot of people say there's a saying that people say you got to hold yourself accountable. I don't believe in that at all. I don't believe that you can. I mean, I believe you can hold yourself accountable only so much,
Sure.
only so
Sure.
much. But
Yeah.
I believe that others can hold you accountable so much more.
Yeah. Wow, man. What great advice. What great lessons that we can really glean from your story. Like, from what I'm hearing is, whether you want to open up a barbershop or not, being an entrepreneur barber is, you don't know what you don't know. So don't be afraid to ask for directions, right? Don't be afraid to ask for somebody else who's been there, and learn from them. That is such great advice. And of course, bringing it back to, even if you are opening a barbershop, I know we were talking about this earlier about serving, but as a leader and somebody who's going to be an owner of the barbershop, is, like you said, is having that servant's heart and being willing to lead by example, lead with your actions. You're not too big to clean the toilets, like you said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not some macho guy where everything has to be held to just you, right? Is you're part of the team, and that atmosphere shift is so phenomenal. And I think that more barbers are starting now to want to do that. I know, like, early 2000s and 2010s, it was very much that. I feel like there's kind of a shift going on there. And I love that. And, I think one thing that I want to ask before we kind of close up and wrap up, I really want to talk about bringing it all together. The final key to the piece, I think it has to be mindset, right? And we kind of touched on this a little bit. As we both know, it's so key to pushing somebody to success, to that next level. So I guess for you, Marco, like, what was one habit or mindset shift that really changed your life and your business the most that you can think of?
Yeah, I think again, it just leads me back to one thing that I always looked at. I always thought about, like, Kobe Bryant was he's a great basketball. He was a great basketball player, right? R.I.P. to GOAT. God
R.I.P.
bless the dead. But he looked up to somebody. He looked up to somebody. We know who he looked up to, right? And he did everything that person did to perfection, right? And that's why he was that's why he was able to achieve what he achieved in his NBA career. And you can learn so much from that. You can learn so much from that. So again, the mindset shift for me is, I was always so self-focused. I was always so self-centered, and I had to really get off thinking about only myself and start to think about others. One thing that I love to see, like, we just got back from a barber show, a barber expo here in Chicago. And one thing that, I haven't been to a barber show in 10 years, right? Since I've been to one. And one thing that I remember last time that really stood out to me, and that I seen again this time that really stood out to me again, was the fact that the barbershops where everyone, like, let's say they all have the same barber jacket from their barbershop. They all have, like, the same outfit on. Like, those guys, they're sold into being on a team where they're valued on this team, and they're given, they feel valued there. Whereas you, the individual, and then like I said again, like, the owners, like, they're coming into these shows, the owner and everybody else is all wearing the same outfit or the same barber jacket or whatever the case might be, and they're just like, they're all just moving together. You know what I mean? And I just love to see that. I love to see that. Other than, like, individuals that you see that have a name, and then you don't even know the guys that work for them or the guys at their barbershop, because it's just all about them. So much about them. And maybe I still have some learning to do in that as well, but I do really appreciate when I see that. So for me, when it comes down to mindset and mindset shifts, it just realizing that, like, another thing is that a lot of people talk about knowing self, and knowing your real self and knowing who you really are. But how do you find that out? Like, where do you get that from? Like, do you start with yourself to find out who you really are? Like, how can you start with yourself to find out who you really are? Like, you need to go. You can't ask an invention who they are. You would have to ask, or you would have to hear from the inventor, and who the inventor says that they are is who they really are, no matter how they feel or no matter what they desire, right? So
Wow, that's a great analogy. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, I always I always try to my motivation is always based on like who God says I am, and knowing that I can look outside, and I don't care how many YouTube videos you watch, not everybody can cut hair like I do, and I'm not the best, but you can learn how to cut hair, but to a level that that the Lord has allowed me to achieve is something that is a gift that I've been given by Him, So my thing is always give back to the person, give back to the giver, to the gift giver, by doing the very best that you can possibly do, the very best you can possibly do. And if you do that, with consistency, over time, you will rise to the top, and you will be noticed. You will be noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, two things, two huge takeaways from that is, number one, I completely agree. We are meant to be part of a community. We are better more than just when we're not alone, right? And you've heard the stick analogy plenty of times, where you do one stick, it breaks, right? You combine a bunch of sticks, a lot harder to break, right? A lot harder to bend. And the president of my Bible college that I went to used to say this all the time, and it's always stuck with me: show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. And it's true. It's like the people, guys, as young entrepreneurs, as entrepreneurs who are running your business, you start hanging around with that wrong crowd. And Marco can attest to this, because he did when he was in high school, right? Getting involved in gangs. You hang around with the wrong crowd, and you'll end up in that place. So the challenge to yourself is like, find a group, of community that pushes you to be better. You know what I mean? And if you guys all, to your second point, have a North Star, for me and Marco, it is our firm belief in God. For you, it doesn't have to necessarily be that. I mean, I'm praying that it is. But if that's not the case, what is your North Star? Is it your family? You know what I mean? Is it your beliefs? Is it your religion? What is it that you're doing it for? And whatever your North Star is keeping that in the forefront and holding yourself to that standard. I love that. I absolutely love that. And, I think I was going to ask you the follow-up question of, what advice would you give a barber listening who feel they're at a crossroads or unsure of what comes next? I think I kind of know what you're going to say when it comes to that, but I would love to hear it in your own words. Like, what's the advice for them, right? Last question, what's the advice that you'd give to them if they're facing a crossroads or they're unsure of what to do next?
Yeah, I think for me, when I faced a crossroads, I wanted to take the easy way out, right? So I remember when I had just came home from prison in 2012, and my clientele, like the shop had just taken on my clientele, because I've been gone for over 2 years. So I had no clientele. So I was like, okay, I'm at a crossroads. What am I going to do? Am I going to, I can make more money if I just go work at a factory. I probably could have made more money if I went and worked at McDonald's, to be honest with you, because I wasn't making really that much money. And, or am I going to be sold out for this? So for me, there was no plan B. Like, it was like, I forget the name of the movie. I think it's Count of Monte Cristo, where they come and they land on some island, and then they land on this island, and I've never watched the whole movie, but I've just seen this part on YouTube, and then they burn the ship. And then they're like, the crewmen are like, why are we burning the ship? Because there's no going back. There's no going back. This is it. Like, we're going to just buckle down, and we're going to do everything we can, because this is the plan. And there's not going to be like, well, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I think so many people nowadays are just so, they're so like scatter focused. Like they got all these things that they want to do instead of just be great at one thing first. And my mom used to tell me the same thing. She used to say, tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. Right? Tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. So I remember when I came out of prison, I remember who I used to walk with before. And I knew that, okay, I need to change my life. What's the one thing that I need to do? I need to start walking with different people. So I started walking with business owners. I started hanging out with young entrepreneurs. I started putting these people in my circle and getting in their circle. And that helped me so much, but one thing that you can always do is lean on someone. If you're at a crossroads, ask for help. Lean on somebody who is where you want to be and ask them for help. Like, humble yourself. Like, don't be ashamed. Humble yourself, ask for help, and then put whatever they tell you into practice. And then even ask somebody to hold you accountable. Hey, I'm trying to do this, this, and this. Hold me accountable on that. Can you hold me accountable on that?
Absolutely.
And that'll help you grow so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I love that. I couldn't have said that any better. What's funny is, hey, that's our jobs, right? That's what we do as coaches for the New Era Barbering. And to kind of plug in the New Era Barbering, if you are looking for a community of like-minded barbers who are trying to grow their business, if you're interested in learning how to use social media to scale your business and really take your business to the next step, hey, we're here for you. We would love to work with you guys, personally connect with you guys. And my Instagram handle is the 180 Cut. You guys can find me on there. You guys can reach me on there. Speaking of that, Marco, how can our listeners, how can they connect with you, and where are you located at?
Yeah, so I'm located in the Chicagoland area, and my Instagram handle is Mr._Stay Sharp.
Stay sharp. That's right. Yes, sir.
Yes. And that is what we do, actually. So my passion is to take people from where they're at and watch what they want to do grow, help them grow that thing. And that's why I wanted to be a coach. That's what I tell all of my private clients that I have on my roster. Like, this is what I love to do. I love to see where you're at now, and I love to do whatever I can to see you grow that. And it's the same thing I do with my barbers. My barbers walk in and they don't have any clients, they don't have anything, and I just love to see, like, I get so much joy off of seeing my barbers buy homes, buy cars, support their families, put their kids through school, put their kids through sports, travel sports, whatever it is. Like, I get so much joy off of being able to provide a place where they can run their business and support their families in that way. That's the same thing I do with the clients on my roster. Same
Absolutely.
exact thing.
Yeah, and me and you, I think we're intertwined in the same heart in that, because we are a product of that. Is people investing in us, investing in us, and it's part of our hearts to want to give back. I love that, man. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and wisdom with us today, Marco. I really know that it's going to inspire so many people out there. And to everyone listening, remember, your transformation is in your hands. It's in your hands. You got to take the next step, no matter how small. And when you're at a crossroads, just remember, listen back to this episode of this podcast. I really think it's going to help you guys out. This is Al Dexter and Marco on the 180 Podcast, signing off.
Peace.